It's the SFL nights it's the SFL nights with AJ Striker, with AJ Striker. It's the SFL nights it's the SFL nights with AJ Striker, with AJ Striker. Ashley Jackson about the action. SFL news, come and join with interaction. Whatever happens, happens. Yeah, you will leave with satisfaction. Yeah, tell your team and tell your captain. Come and tune in, new episodes weekly. You can tune in from your room in afternoons, and when the moon hits, it's unique. It's the SFL nights it's the SFL nights with AJ Striker,
What is up, SFL Nation? And welcome back to SFL Nights with AJ Striker. Thank you so much for joining me today or tonight or whenever you decided to hit that play button or turn on that radio dial. Really appreciate it, y'all. I have with me my panel of esteemed guests. First off, we have Mr. Aaron Alexander, fullback of the Fort Worth Toros. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing all right, Ashley. How are you?
Doing absolutely fantastic. Thank you for being on with me. It's been a minute.
It has.
All right, gotcha. Next up, I have my owner and coach, Senor Eddie Gage. How are you doing, Mr. Strong Safety?
How y'all doing tonight? What's going on?
Not much, man. Just here trying to get this show on the road. Appreciate you for being here. And last but not least, I have Mr. Isaiah King III.
How you doing, AJ?
Fantastic. He is a member of the Denver Nightwings. Free safety, right? Just make sure I got that right.
Yes, ma'am.
You know, sometimes I've talked to so many people, it get kind of hairy, but welcome back, y'all. Thank you for being here.
Know who he is. That's pick off you, Ashley. You should know who he is. He picked
Shut
up.
See, why you gotta be
Told her last season
like
too. I told her last season too.
It's because you didn't call the right play, coach. That's the reason why he got the ball. That's a mess. But thank y'all for being here. Everyone, my guests and I are going to be going over week 7 games. There was a lot of great games that happened, a lot of close ones at that. Followed by my SFL chat around the water cooler, which will consist of us doing our pick-ems for week 8. And also we're going to be going over the divisions, how everything shifted after this week, and playoff standings. So if the playoffs were to happen right now, these are the teams that would make it. These are the teams that would be in the middle. And then these are teams that will completely miss it. So let's get started with the fun, shall we? First game that we're going to discuss tonight is one of the most surprising games, I think, of the whole week was the Carolina Skyhawks beating the Queen City Corsairs, undefeated at that time, Queen City Corsairs 26-24. Carolina had 394 yards passing, 104 yards rushing for 498 yards total. Their time of possession was 18 minutes and 45 seconds with 2 mistakes. The Corsairs had 205 yards passing, 135 yards rushing, for 340 yards total. Their time of possession was 24 minutes, 29 seconds with 1 mistake. Player of the game was quarterback Matt South. 31 completions out of 39 attempts, 394 yards, 1 touchdown, and a quarterback rating of 95.9. So this is an impressive win for the Carolina Skyhawks to be able to pull this off with a walk-off field goal from Mr. Whistle Jones at the last second to beat an undefeated team. What do you guys think about this game?
I mean, admittedly, a lot of the games this week were absolute insanity. There were, I think, half the games were down to the wire and won by a field goal as time expired. But this one definitely the most surprising. It keeps Carolina in the hunt for the Atlantic Division title, although they currently sit, I believe, 3rd in their division there. But also it proves that Queen City, despite how good they've looked all season, still can have moments where they're beatable. There's another word that I'm looking for, but I can't think of it off the top of my head.
No worries.
But I mean, even with the loss, Queen City still looked poised to be easily one of the favorites going into playoffs this season if they can come back from this loss and keep going at the pace that we're at prior to that Carolina game.
Absolutely. Anybody else?
I would like just add in that Matt South, he looked pretty impressive. 31 of 39. That's hard to keep completing everything, especially with the way some DBs play in the league. He was pretty accurate. So.
All right, gotcha.
That win for Carolina gave them a huge strength of victory win. So should they make the playoffs, they're probably going to leap some teams because of that strength of schedule victory that they have, or strength of victory win they have over a previously unbeaten team. So if they can make a run here, it's going to really help them in terms of playoff seeding.
All right, gotcha. I have Mr. Max Paul joining us. Hold on one second. And everyone, Max Paul is the owner of the Florida Storm. Max, how are you?
I'm good, dearest. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate you.
No problem. My pleasure's all mine.
Awesome. So right now we are discussing the win that Carolina took over the Queen City Corsairs. Before I move on, was there anything that you wanted to add to that?
No, just besides the fact that I'm very happy for Carolina because they've been, for lack of a better term, a snake bin franchise that gets close and then something always out of the that doesn't even make sense. You can't even make it up. You know what I'm saying? Even if you saw it in a movie, it just wouldn't compute in your mind the way their games have ended. So the fact that they were able to pull a tough one out at the end was I was very happy for them. I even congratulated their leadership last week after the game because it was very well executed. Great job by Matt South in that final drive to get him in position to be able to kick a field goal to win the game.
Absolutely. The Denver Nightwings took on the Baltimore Vultures, and Baltimore won 44-24. The Nightwings had 286 yards passing, 168 yards rushing, 454 yards total. Their time of possession was 22 minutes, 49 seconds with 6 mistakes. Baltimore had 427 yards passing, 148 yards rushing for 575 yards total. Their time possession was 21 minutes, 11 seconds with also 6 turnovers. Jack Wigmore was the player of the game with 29 completions out of 45 attempts, 427 yards, 4 touchdowns, and a quarterback rating of 85.4. So it is amazing that both of these teams had 6 turnovers. They both did pretty well, but it seems like Baltimore did exceedingly well with their passing game this go round. Of course, Isaiah, I gotta throw it to you. What happened, man? Why did y'all lose this game?
So at first I would say we were coming back with the picks and Jack was getting frustrated but we just couldn't capitalize. I think we capitalized off of, I think we had 4 in a row in the first half. I think we capitalized off of 1. And Bailey he got it going, but I guess the game plan the AI just kept triggering pass. So with the pass game not going, and then we started throwing picks, they were able to hold on to the lead and push forward. And then eventually Jack got going. And of course, if your defense is on the field most of the game, even though the time of possession, it doesn't seem like we're on the field a lot, but when you actually go watch the game, we're on the field, a lump sum, even though we kept causing turnovers. And once they just got going, it was hard to slow them down. And then they got the run game going. And then once they got the run game going, I mean, he broke, I think like a 70, 80 yarder through the left side of the defense, and at that point, once they kept scoring, it was just over, and we couldn't do anything anymore. So
the hole was too deep. Got it. Anyone else?
Baltimore this season. Go ahead.
The deep passing game of Baltimore was a struggle for Denver to defend all game long. They got a number of picks out of it, particularly off that fade route that they kept trying to throw to Chima. But a couple of times he did get loose and they capitalized. But other than that, Denver had the opportunities, but they just couldn't capitalize off the mistakes. And as a result, and Baltimore got the run game going too, which is something they really haven't been doing too much of this season. So if they get their run game going, combined with what they already doing in the passing game, they're going to be a tough out for anybody.
Very much so.
Yeah, and Baltimore this season has proven to be a team that once they start rolling, they're very difficult to stop. Denver, of course, was able to get quite a few turnovers off of Jack Wigmore, but Baltimore's defense was able to do the same to Eric Price, and Baltimore's offense was able to capitalize better on those turnover opportunities than Denver was able to. So it's no surprise that they won the game by the deficit they did. It definitely realistically should have been a lot closer, but Baltimore just in general this season, for some reason, regardless of what you plan for, it seems they always find some way to exploit your game plan, whether it's you're expecting deep passes and they start throwing short mid-range, or you plan wholly for the pass and then Jimmy Hazard starts going with the run game. So Baltimore's definitely going to be one to watch out for moving forward into the rest of the season, just to see if there's any team that's going to be capable of not just beating them, but even making a game particularly close, because I think their margin of victory is like 14 or plus points in pretty much every game they've played this season.
Good point. Max, you good?
Yeah, there's nothing that hasn't been said already. Denver hung tough, early on in the ball game with all the turnovers they were able to acquire and force from Baltimore, but eventually Baltimore kind of, regardless of turnovers, they left undaunted and felt undaunted and just kept chucking it deep, and eventually they connected a couple times and that broke the game open.
Awesome. Speaking of breaking the game open, the Florida Storm took on the St. Louis Gladiators, and the Storm won 35-27. The Storm had 274 passing yards, 68 rushing yards for 342 total yards. Their time of possession was 22 minutes, 20 seconds, 3 mistakes. The St. Louis Gladiators had 345 yards passing, 82 yards rushing for 427 yards total. Their time of possession was 20 minutes, 59 seconds with 1 mistake. Player of the game was Charlie Beletsky with 23 attempts, 74 yards, 2 touchdowns, 29 reception yards, and 1 reception touchdown. So Max, would you mind breaking down this game for us? How did you guys win despite the Gladiators having more passing yards, having more rushing yards, even holding the ball? Well, actually, you guys held the ball a little bit longer.
In the first half, it was very nip tuck. We traded a couple of key interceptions. We forced a pick early. We were able to get on their goal line. They were able to turn around and force a red zone turnover. And then from there, they got a field goal first. We were able to, answer that field goal that they got with a touchdown drive. We were able to then get another touchdown. And then we left 14-10 at halftime. And as I love doubling up, scoring before half and then scoring after half is a thing that we kind of pride ourselves in. So we're able to double up, which in turn kind of forced their hand and forced them to have to throw the ball a little more than I believe that they desired. We're able to force a couple 3 and outs and kind of increase that lead a little bit. At one point, I believe we're up 35-19. And at that point, that's when they started kind of making a comeback. Funny thing in that game, though, we put the backups in on defense, and they got late touchdown in there with less than 2 minutes. And then for some odd reason, we decided to put the backups in on offense too. And it was like all kinds of crazy in that game. But luckily for us, our backups were able to convert a clutch 3rd and 10. And then we're able to like kind of kneel out and get out of there with a dub. You know, anytime you can win on the road, no matter what the score might be, long as you have one more point than your opponent, you will take it. So that's kind of how the attitude we had. You know, we're walking out of there, the Golden Gate. You know what I'm saying? The Golden, not Golden Gate. I'm sorry. The walking out of St. Louis with a W, especially the way they've been playing the last couple of seasons, like really tough, especially since Drew took over as the head coach. Mm-hmm. You know, big ups to them for that turnaround there. For you know, being such a competitive franchise as of late. So we're just happy to walk out of there with W so we could kind of focus on our next opponent.
Absolutely. Anybody else want to add to this?
I was expecting Mighty to have Bullet as a feature of the offense, but once again, he went back to who he is, and that's throwing the ball. I'm kind of disappointed in Mighty that Bullet wasn't more of a feature, but like he always tells me, I don't care how you get it done, just get it done, get the W, get up out of there. And that's what he did.
Gotcha. All right. So the San Diego Mavericks took on the Charleston Predators, and the Predators won 13-16. I'm sorry, Aaron and Isaiah, did y'all want to add to that, or were you good?
There is something that I did want to add.
Please do.
There was a point earlier in the season where I feared that Florida was trying to find its identity again after, you know, losing some of the players they did on offense, as well as the acquisitions they made in the offseason. But with how it stands now, Florida looks mighty similar, if not, you know, the same team that they were last season when they came runner-up in the championship. The game they played against St. Louis, while the ending was almost disastrous, I think it is definitely proof of where Florida stands as a team, and I think there's so many good teams this season. It's hard to really say who's going to make the championship again this season. But Florida, if they continue this run that they've been on, definitely make a strong case of being one of those final two teams.
Great point. San Diego Mavericks took on the Charleston Predators, and Charleston won 16-13. Another close game. Passing, San Diego had 221 yards passing, 108 yards rushing, 329 yards total. Their time of possession was 20 minutes, 30 seconds with 4 turnovers. Charleston had 277 passing yards, only 82 rushing yards though, for 359 yards total. Their time of possession was 23 minutes, 30 seconds with 3 mistakes. Player of the game was T.D. Drew, quarterback, with 24 completions out of 37 attempts, 277 yards, 1 touchdown, and a quarterback rating of 62.6. So with this game, I'm thinking that Charleston won because they had more time to make those major plays. Well, at least get that probably the game-winning field goal. Unfortunately, I didn't see the end of this game. But since they won by 3, I would think that there was a field goal that was made that was necessary in order for them to get this win. And looking at the time of possession, they definitely had more time. It's just, I'm curious about what happened to their rushing game. Does anybody want to kind of chime in on that?
So I was on the call for that game between Charleston and San Diego, and pretty much all season, Charleston just hasn't really been able to get their run game going with Keith Swearinger, despite the addition of Terrell Sutherland through the draft. And realistically, up until like the last 5 minutes of the fourth quarter, San Diego looked completely poised to win that game 10-7, 13-7. The difference maker, though, was San Diego, at inopportune moments, would try to throw a deep pass downfield that would get intercepted by Charleston. And specifically on their final drive, what ended up being their final drive. And because of that, Charleston was able to march its way downfield, and Brechet was able to kick that last-minute field goal as time expired. But throughout, 95% of that game, it was pretty much all San Diego. Their offense was able to move the ball decently well. Defensively, they were doing a great job defending, Keith Swearingen on the ground. There was a bit of a struggle with at some moments in the pass game. But San Diego looked like the team that was going to go home with that game, and unfortunately, turnovers just caused too many problems for them in the end.
You're right. Anyone else?
Looking back at that game, as I just peeked at the stats or whatever, what I noticed is that while Charleston was struggling, San Diego was they didn't take advantage. They were leading that half, but like Aaron said, it turned out that they ended up throwing more picks and turning the ball over more, and Charleston ended up possessing the ball longer time, and one possession or 2-3 minutes can make a big difference in the game. So I think really the key to the game was the turnovers, and if they would just took advantage while Charleston was down and struggling, then there would have been no chance for them to come back.
Good point. Anybody else? All right then.
Game was San Diego was for the and with a victory. I was rooting for them because I don't want to be the only team to lose to them this season. And for about 95% of that game, it was theirs for the taking. As Alexander kind of highlighted, they threw that turnover late, deep in their own end, that got Charleston the ball already within field goal range. It was just a matter of milking the clock and kicking that game winner.
Gotcha. Max?
I love the fact that San Diego is looking like they're competing this season a lot more than last season, but also it might show signs for Charleston, because sometimes being able to pull out games you have no business of winning, it can be the springboard for good things to come. So let's keep an eye on Charleston, see how they kind of perform for the rest of the season, and see if that's the case.
Good deal. The Mexico City Aztecs took on the Houston Hyenas, and Mexico won 27-24, another close game. The Houston Hyenas had 323 yards passing, 105 yards rushing for 428 yards total. Their time of possession was 23 minutes, 12 seconds with 3 turnovers. Mexico had a very balanced game with 175 yards passing, 173 yards rushing for 348 yards total. Their time of possession was 19 minutes, 59 seconds with no mistakes. Phoenix Jones, halfback, was the player of the game with 25 attempts, 140 yards, 1 touchdown, and 7 reception yards. So, gentlemen, it looks like Mexico had a clean game. They played very balanced ball on passing and rushing. I think this is probably the most balanced I've seen all week, at least. And they held the ball with less time. So what do you think was the reason that Mexico City won this game, especially with holding the ball with less time?
Well, again, as I took a peek, Dr. Sim killed it as always at taking a peek. That guy is crazy. But anyways, it looks like Houston had 3 turnovers and Mexico City had 0. So just with that off bat, watching any sim, watching real football, anything, those turnovers make a giant difference. And even though Houston was able to come back at the end, sometimes playing from behind is way harder. You might just run out of time, and it looks like Mexico City was just, with the lower time of possession, they were just capitalizing on what they got every time. So I think, just really it's just the turnovers that killed Houston in this one.
Gotcha.
Houston came out with a different game plan defensively than we're accustomed to seeing. And it took Mexico City a hot minute to get adjusted to it. But eventually, I believe it's like the second or third drive, Phoenix Jones had like a 50 or 60 yard TD run. And, he looked like he was back to his old self. But Houston, as he stated, made a run and came back. But I think eventually the turnovers, the fact that they lost that turnover battle 3-0, 0-3 is what did them in.
I definitely agree. Aaron, Max, y'all good?
I think there's going to come a point, and I believe we're at that point already, considering that Houston has lost 4 of their last 5. That teams are starting to clue in to what Houston's main game plan is, which is typically Dave Burr throwing a deep ball to DR Sim. And if Houston can't find
what route, Alex?
I'm not confident enough in my route knowledge to be able to confidently answer that question. I believe it's typically a fade.
I bet you
that Houston likes to run.
What's the answer to that question, Max?
Nope, I'm not doing it. I'm not outing people out there. I'll leave my eye emoji up. That's all I got.
I'm still learning these routes again. It's been a while, okay? But no, typically Houston's game plan is a lot of passing, even though they have a very capable running back in Warren Murray. And I think in order for Houston to see success going into this last half of the season, I think they need to try and shift focus to a more balanced offensive scheme instead of going for more mid to deep type passes that they have been. And I think whether or not they're able to do that is going to give us an idea of whether or not they're gonna be in the playoff picture at all at this point.
Good point. All right. Was that 90Z post by chance?
Nah.
Okay. I had to guess. I guessed. The Louisiana Revolution took on the London Knights, and the Revolution won 26-24. This was a very, very exciting game to watch because both of these teams have a very deep rivalry going on right now. And I've seen the quarterback, Johnny Pickner from London, put a few things out on Twitter. And I swear every time he does that, they lose. I wish he would stop doing it. He did it to Fort Worth. I believe it was not last season before. It was crazy. And they still lost. So
he dressed in black for the funeral, he said.
Yes. And they was wearing all black and they won. It was crazy. But Louisiana had 325 yards passing, 157 yards rushing for 482 yards total. Their time of possession was 26 minutes and 54 seconds with 1 mistake. London had 379 yards passing, 43 yards rushing for 422 yards total. Their time of possession was 17 minutes 2 seconds with 1 mistake. Player of the game was halfback Reggie Streeter with 27 attempts, 151 yards, 1 touchdown, 78 reception yards, and 1 reception touchdown. So I think the reason why London lost, besides having the ball less time, is because they couldn't get their rushing game off the ground. If you're only scoring 43 rushing yards against someone that's doing 157, they got more chances to score on you, which I think that's what happened. But anybody else want to chime in on this?
I'm just gonna say shout out to Tommy Utah. I just talked to him earlier before that game, And even in the minors, he used to talk about how painful some of the games are to watch because the quarterbacks throw pick and pick and pick. And this week, he threw for 325, and he still threw a pick, but he got a touchdown. At least it was, a 1-to-1 ratio. So just shout out to him. He had a solid game as well.
Awesome. Anybody else? Oh, and I know all about picks, don't you? Yes.
Not this season. Slow down. Not this season.
Hey,
I threw enough for the past 3 seasons.
I got my first pick from you. It's in a glass case back in the mansion.
Well, I'm glad I could contribute to your mantle.
It's okay. It's okay. There's about 7 more coming this season, so don't worry.
Okay.
Don't worry.
We're gonna have words after this. Understand?
So,
Aaron,
this was the other game that I called this weekend, and there were definitely a lot of contributing factors to why Louisiana won this game. One was Tommy Utah. Admittedly, both quarterbacks were almost flawless as far as their pass games go. Only an interception between each of them, when both of them have proven to be more turnover happy, is incredibly impressive out of both of them. But one of the key differences was the run game that Louisiana was able to augment that pass game with, as opposed to London, who couldn't really get Robert Merrill going at all during that game, whereas Reggie Streeter basically ran over half of London's defense. The other key contributing point was Louisiana's defense. They held London to just 10 third down attempts, and London only converted 3 of them. Compared to, if we look at Louisiana, they had 14 attempts and 8 conversions,
right?
With a first down gain difference between them of 8. So Louisiana was just all around a better team in this game against London. London proved that they were able to score incredibly quickly, and there were times where they scored incredibly quickly. But between the passing attack of Louisiana and the run game they were able to establish with Reggie Streeter, at the end of the game, they had a run of, I think, 3 or 4 different drives that ended in London's red zone that turned into scoring opportunities. But London eventually just wasn't able to get anywhere close to Louisiana's red zone, especially in the second half of the game. And I think that's the biggest reason why the game ended the way it did, which was another last-second field goal by Otis Boudreau.
Mm-hmm. A lot of close games this week. Max, did you have anything to add to it?
Not really. Just London's MO is not, their offense is not a conventional offense. And what I mean by that is that unlike most offenses who seek balance between running and throwing, both attempts-wise and yardage-wise, London doesn't see it that way. London just looks at Robert as, an additional receiver and as a way to relieve pressure from Johnny, so that way he doesn't have to sit there and have to kind of be Superman every drive, right? Mm-hmm. So when looking at London, most games they will end the game with less rushing yards than the other team, and at this point it's almost by design.
Most games.
No, that's if you go back for the last 2 seasons, there are a couple of games where they have more rushing yards than their opponent. But that's why I say most. But in most games, London's going to wind up having less rushing yards, but that's almost by design because they use Robert more in the passing game. That's why he winds up with, I think last season he ended with 100 some catches out the backfield, which was crazy, but that's how they run their offense. Now, conversely, additionally, you brought a great point. Their lack of ability to convert third downs kind of doomed drives that had they been able to convert could have gotten them more points and a little breathing room and not made the fourth quarter as difficult, and basically that led them to lose the game. Had they been able to convert more, so that's something they're gonna have to look at, and you got to give big kudos and big ups to Louisiana's defense for coming and play that game and being able to get them bulls off the field and get Reggie Streeter the ball back.
Got it. The Lone Star Glory took on the Fort Worth Toros, and Lone Star won. Wait.
No, they did. They did.
They won.
I didn't get the score though.
It was 23-20. Hold on. There's a whole thread for this in.
That's crazy. I got the whole
yeah.
stats and then get the.
It was 23-20, the same score as the Arizona LA game.
Wow. And it seems like most teams, like this week, it's been really close. Like 3-point wins, 2-point wins. It's crazy. But y'all had a chance. We'll discuss that in a second. But Lone Star had 209 yards passing, only 95 yards rushing, with 304 yards total. Their time possession was 20 minutes, 26 seconds with no mistakes. The Fort Worth Toros had 139 yards passing, 176 yards rushing, for 315 yards total. Their time possession was 22 minutes, 38 seconds with one mistake. Unfortunately, I did not have the graphic for this one, for this particular game, and including the player of the game. So I'm not sure if there was one. If there wasn't, I'm going to name Dave Axis, wide receiver, the player of the game, with 8 receptions for 83 yards, 2 touchdowns, and averaged 10 yards per reception. So, Aaron, what happened?
We got doinked. That's what happened.
Yeah.
We there were a couple opportunities that we had for a go ahead and game tying field goal. The first one, I believe, was kicked short, and the second doinked off the right upright and bounced out, which would have taken the game to overtime. Which, the way that we had been playing, I think we definitely could have won the game had it gone to OT. But unfortunately, the winds were unfavorable that day, apparently, for Taco.
Yeah.
I'm still mad. I'm still mad. It's been almost a week, and it still upsets me that we lost that game.
No, man, it happens. You get those games where you're just that close. I mean, Arizona had been there few times with Denver, but it happens, man.
Yeah, I the biggest thing right now is we're still struggling a bit to find our identity offensively under Jason Williams, and a part of that is why I believe we've been struggling so far this season. There's definitely games that have been winnable, but I think just some of the choices that have been made offensively have kind of hurt us in the long run.
Gotcha. Maybe those growing pains, when we saw Jason and Josh over there doing the thing for the Adams, I could tell that they're learning. I could tell that, that they're growing in their coaching abilities. But sometimes it just takes a little bit of time to kind of transition that over. So I think y'all will be just fine though, because you played them. Clearly you played them. It's just, like you said, that win thing, man, gets you every time.
Yep.
Well, anybody else?
I'll just add on to that. I believe Ace Phoenix's ability to, not turn over the ball and be very accurate also gave Lone Star a great chance.
Good point. The Tulsa go ahead, Max. I'm sorry, honey.
Aaron brought up a great point about identity. Seeing that we are slightly past the halfway mark, I'm just gonna segue because I believe in that game, what was weird is that neither team really was able to put their foot on the other or be able to force their will on the other as a nip-tuck game. but it was also because neither team, as Aaron said, like identity-wise, what is Lone Star good for? What is Fort Worth good at? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like last season, you knew if you had to see Fort Worth, that defense was going to be a problem, right? You had to see Lone Star last season, you knew they were going to come with a ridiculously balanced attack where if you lean too much trying to stop Ike, they were going to hit you upside the head with Adam and the rest, you know what I'm saying, the receiving squad. Mm-hmm. This season, it's not like that. Like, the struggles that both teams are having is because they haven't kind of put their marker as to what they're good at and been able to take off with it. So the reason why I bring that up, because you're about to talk about the next game, another team that is kind of in the same realm in Tulsa is are they a passing team? Are they a rushing team? Are they a defensive team? Like what is, you know what I'm saying? What brings the people to the game to watch you? You know what I'm saying? They buy that ticket, they step in the stadium, they sit down and like, oh yeah, we know our defense gonna come to play. Oh no, we know that ball gonna be in the air 60 times because that's like, what do you do best? And can you use that to propel you to win games, to put you in position to win? That's where a lot of these teams that are struggling, that can't put together 2 wins in a row, you know, this is the time that you need to figure out what you're good at so you could kind of accentuate that and hide what you're bad at. And hopefully you're able to do that more often than not and put you in a position to be able to get to that second season.
Got it. Gotcha. And it's great segue, by the way, with the Tulsa Desperados taking on the Jacksonville Kings. And the Kings won it all 31-13. Tulsa had 296 yards passing, 54 yards rushing, 350 yards total. Their time of possession is 56 minutes. Now that could not be right. 56 minutes, there got to be a glitch. 13 seconds with 3 turnovers. And Jacksonville had 292 yards passing, 52 yards rushing, for 344 yards total. Their time of possession, 20 minutes, 55 seconds with 3 mistakes. So clearly that time of possession for Tulsa was not right. Quarterback Marcus Dunhill is back in the limelight as player of the game with 31 completions out of 42 attempts, 292 yards, 2 touchdowns, and the quarterback rating of 78.7. So like you were saying, Max, it's more so trying to figure out what Tulsa is good at. They have the components, they have the key players that they need to make substantial plays. Like I believe Jorge Torres had an interception. Of course, you know, JQ has the ability to scramble. I think his scramble is like freaking 80 or something, so he can scramble if absolutely necessary. I think their catalyst would be their turnovers. I think that is ultimately what keeps them from I don't want to say from getting over that hump. Would you say?
I agree. I think JQ struggled with during the season and even in this game as well. With throwing interceptions versus, you know, trying to, you know, get the ball into the end zone really hurts Tulsa. Even when I was watching them earlier on in the season, same thing. If, you know, they can either, you know, find a way to, you know, get them, it's maybe just find different plays to use and not throw the deep ball or whatever is just causing him to throw those picks so much as they find a different way to put the ball into the end zone. I mean, he's not inaccurate. He just, you know, slips up from time to time. But if they find a way to put the ball in the end zone, I think they'd be a lot more competitive than what they are being.
Gotcha. Anybody else?
I think we were, you know, continuing this talk of identity. I think on the opposite end of Tulsa in this game, Jacksonville is a team that, while they struggled early, they've since found their identity. They've found what they as a team excel at and have executed that to a level that has basically turned their season around. You know, they started with, I believe, 4 straight losses, and then after that 4th loss, they've just turned it around. almost in a complete 180. They're definitely one of those teams, depending on the rest of their season, that's either going to be in wild card, or we may see them just on the bubble going toward the end, with like maybe one or two other games going their way for them to actually make playoffs.
Got it. Anybody else?
I think Max and Alex kind of hit it on the head, with Tulsa.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. They just, some weeks they come out and they look like, contenders. And other weeks they come out and just fall flat. And it's just, they need to find out who they are. Just like, I can't quite knock them because I'm still trying to figure out who we are. I know who we are defensively, but offensively, I'm trying to get DJ going. And it's been a struggle all season for whatever reason. Season 14, he was our bell cow. Season 15 kind of fell off. And season 16, he kind of came back a little bit. And now here in season 17, I just can't get a consistent run game going. And until I can do that, I can't really speak on someone else too much because I'm still trying to figure it out myself. But Tulsa is one of those teams that they need to figure out what their identity is. What kind of, when people buy, like Mighty kind of hit on the head, when people buy tickets to go see him play, what style of offense are they coming to see? And each week we just don't know what that is.
Good point. Speaking of figuring things out, the Arizona Scorpions took on the LA Lycans, and Arizona won 23-20. Again, these 3-point differences, man. Walk-off field goals, man. Arizona had 311 yards passing, 73 yards rushing with 384 yards total. Our time of possession was 19 minutes and 32 seconds with 2 mistakes. The Lycans had 286 yards passing, 101 yards rushing with 387 yards total. Their time of possession was 24 minutes, 12 seconds, also with 2 mistakes. I was your player of the game, quarterback, 26 completions out of 35 attempts, 311 yards, 1 touchdown, 86.7 quarterback rating, approximately 500, and I want to say 74 yards away from having 20,000 yards under my belt in this league. Absolutely. I'm so glad that we won this game. I had anxiety all week about it. Well, I have anxiety about the games, every game.
Facts.
But it's just, you just want to win certain games, and this was one of them that I really, really wanted to win.
Why is that?
Though I did throw 2 turnovers to the same person, Miss Rachel Colson. And it's funny because it seems like she would love to be our wide receiver or something, because I swear she is always catching the balls. The last time we played them, and she was in Carolina, she caught 4 of them. I'm like, you just trying to be on the team or what? But I think because of because we both had those mistakes, I think Cliff had the advantage of doing the walk-off field goal, because that's been done to us quite a bit this particular season. Right. So what are your thoughts on it?
All week long, probably till about Tuesday, maybe Wednesday morning, I was getting headaches about, Robert Johnson, that tailback, formerly known as Ash Odom. And I was like, my God, I got to find a way to, limit this guy and try to do it responsibly, because, when you look at their games, he's the bell cow of their offense. Now, I had to find a way to responsibly shut him down. He'd had his moments, his bright spots, but I thought for the most part we did a pretty good job of containing him. But their passing game was more productive than I anticipated, than I saw all week, and I couldn't get a figure out on why it kept happening. But they just had. On one time it was 4th and 3. They threw a 20-yard seam route to the fullback for a first down. It's like everything was just going wrong with our pass defense. It was just really irking my brain because we had success all week against it, and they didn't do anything that I saw differently. But for whatever reason, they had a great day in the passing game. But in the end, we hung tough. I think it was 63. Yeah, it was 63 at halftime. They were winning, and we had a couple of unfortunate turnovers, deep in their own end on the verge of capitalizing for scores that kind of hurt us. But our defense hung tough and kept us in the game. And I just kept telling myself, even you was texting me, Ashley, I purposely ignored you, by the way, because don't text me during the game because my anxiety is already at an all-time high for the week. So during the game, especially if we losing, if we got maybe a 2.5 score lead, you can text me. But anything less than that, don't, because I'm not going to answer you. So I saw your text. I knew you was pissed off about the picks and everything, but I purposely ignored you because I just can't function right now. My anxiety is too high. I'm stressing out, and so I knew, that if we could just hold the ship deep, if we could just hold the fort defensively, we would get things going offensively because I like what I was seeing. And sure enough, in the second half, our offense got going. But they made another run, like I said, late, tied the game up, and we were able to win it with a walk-off field goal for a change because, we lost 2 straight, games with a walk-off field goal. So to get one ourselves was gratifying.
Absolutely. Anyone else want to chime in?
Eddie, you know how you prevent the walk-off field goal? Score more points.
I know, bro, man. I know, man. I'm trying. I knew you was gonna say something too, man. I knew it.
It's hard to score more points though when you got Ray Colston covering center field like Mike Trout or some shit.
She don't play for Arizona. I thought she was a new receiver. No, my bad.
I'm gonna let that go because we won a game. Otherwise, man, we might have a problem.
I guess y'all don't watch games the way I watch games. So usually I'm in the VC with about 10 other Storm members. They're cursing the TV and the game out. I'm just sitting back there laughing. I'm just laughing at whatever happens because it's like we game planned, we did whatever. So, but hey, Eddie, what's the name of the game? Consistency. You have to find that, and y'all found that in the second half. Yes, that's how y'all were able to score all those points and put yourselves in a position to be able to walk away with the field goal. That's the name of the game. Identity, consistency, right? Because it's nice if once you forgot what you're supposed to be, but if you can't be it when you're supposed to be it, what good is it, right? So they've worked hand in hand, and in that second half, you're able to do that. And now, can you continue down that path for the rest of the season? That's how we play the games. But congrats on that big time W, because I know them boys did not let you sleep this whole week. Kind of prep for big old Robert Johnson just running and rumbling, stumbling the way down that defense. So and about their fullback on that crazy conversion, remember their fullback caught like 50 passes against Baltimore week 1.
17,
You know he could catch. So
God, I wish it were me.
What you say, Aaron?
I said, God, I wish it were me.
You get there, keep progressing.
And it will be progressions. All right, y'all. So the Portland Fleet took on the Las Vegas Fury, and the Fury won 38-20. Kind of surprising to me, especially the way Portland has been playing lately. But hey, a win is a win. And a win it was, with Las Vegas having 254 yards passing, 151 yards rushing for 405 yards total. Their time of possession was 26 minutes, 55 seconds with one mistake. On the other hand, Portland had 197 yards rushing, 197 yards passing, 159 yards rushing for 356 yards total. Their time possession was 17 minutes and 5 seconds with 7 turnovers. Scott Johnson was the player of the game with 28 attempts for 156 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 11 reception yards. So I'm guessing it's pretty safe to say that the reason why Las Vegas was able to capitalize and win this game was because they had so many turnovers. Would you say?
Yeah, I would agree on that one.
Max Jackson, right? Wasn't he like 4 interceptions or something crazy?
Yeah, I believe so. Max Jackson, he had 4 interceptions. Even with Ezekiel Love having, a solid game, if OJ throwing picks every other time he touches the ball. There's nothing you can do on offense running the ball the way they were. And then on the other end, Joseph Green managing the game well, and their running back killing it as well. It's just a lopsided affair. It's like our game. If we would have had that 6 picks and then we'd have managed it well and just kept feeding Bailey, you would have seen a different score. But basically, what Las Vegas did in this one is, take what they were given with the picks and then, just try their best not to do the same and finish the game.
Got it. Anybody else?
Scott Johnson was whooping. That boy there put on a show in that game. Now, the thing is, I don't know if Portland started feeling themselves a little bit. They got a little win streak. They got that winning record for the first time in franchise history. I don't know if they saw Vegas as, kind of a wounded opponent, and instead of, getting ready the way they're used to getting ready, I don't know if they overlooked them for the next game. At this point, I'm just speculating because I'm not in touch with their coaching staff like that. But coming into that game, that's almost how I felt, right? Because you think Portland's vaunted defense coming in to bust heads, and next thing you know, Scott Johnson's loose. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, all over the place. Did these boys, why is Scott Johnson all over the place? That's what you got to take away, force the rookie quarterback to beat you, and that's not what occurred at all. And conversely, Portland got a little too generous with distributing the ball to the other team. Like, sometimes it's okay to not beat yourself. That's another big thing. Like, especially if you're going into a game where maybe because you're not entirely sure or of what kind of opponent you might face, you might be a little more conservative. Why? 2 things. You're helping your defense out by being conservative because you're not exposing them and setting them up for failure by giving them short fields they have to defend. And secondarily, you're not also setting your O up to kind of fall in his face and lose the game before you got a chance to win it. And that's what happened. Like, Portland in that second half, it's almost like they were fighting uphill because they created such a chasm to have to overcome. That's too much work. It's tiring to watch. I can only imagine while you're in the game trying to complete that effort. Like, why defeat yourself? You know what I'm saying? So put yourself in a position to succeed by, let's not get too crazy with the throws that we're going to make. Give the rock to the leading rusher in the SFL, right? Feed him. Feed that boy till he throw up. You feel me? And then conversely, now your defense got time to rest. Your quarterback could get his confidence back and whatnot. But that's not what happened with Portland. Luckily for us, it's a very long season. Portland got a chance to, kind of make up what they just lost in the lead they had. And now conversely, Vegas is so helter-skelter. They come 1 week, they thump. The next week, did they get off the bus? Like, it's weird with Vegas. Mm-hmm. Let's see if Vegas is able to put, another competitive effort out this coming weekend. Because if they can, remember, this is a Vegas squad that didn't make the playoffs last season. So it's not like, they're far from being doormats, for lack of a better term. Like, they're a competitive squad. So the early season struggles with a couple of wins they got in the last 3 weeks. Let's see if they can keep that ball rolling, because if they are, they're going to be a problem down the stretch as well, because Max Jackson and the rest of that, defense, they love to take the ball away. Mm-hmm. And if they're able to do that, that'll give their rookie quarterback, some room to breathe where he doesn't have to be Superman as well. He could just feed Scott Johnson from time to time, take his shots when he can, knowing that even if he screws up, the defense is going to save him.
Good points, man. Good points. Does anybody else want to add to that? I think he pretty much covered it.
Yeah, Mighty pretty much covered. The only point that I had was that Vegas this season has seemed to be one of the most volatile, I think, of any team in the SFL. Some weeks they'll come out and they'll play like the team they were last season that made a pretty deep run in the playoffs, whereas other weeks it's just like it's a bunch of dead fish out on the field. Like there's no drive, there's nothing. We'll have to see moving forward, though, if Vegas loses that volatility and can actually start stringing like actual quality wins together.
Got it.
He pretty much covered it all, but I will say this for Portland. They were dealing with a death in the family and their coaching staff, and so that kind of played a part in how much preparation time they had too.
Yeah. And condolences to Nelson Manzano and his family, and he lost his father. And we do want to, reach out to him, show him the love that we always do as a community. It's tough losing anybody. It's very tough losing a parent. So our prayers and thoughts are with you always, Nelson. Did anybody want to add to that?
Marty is the new me. He took over for
seriously, like it dropped the mic. It was over. Like the Atlanta Swarm took on the DC Dragons, and Atlanta won 34-31. Atlanta had 289 yards passing for 62 yards rushing with 351 yards total. Their time of possession was 19 minutes and 22 seconds with 2 mistakes. DC had 295 yards passing, 119 yards rushing for 414 yards total. Their time of possession was 28 minutes, 10 seconds with 4 mistakes. Player of the game was quarterback Bryant Dynasty, Mr. Hair Flip himself, had 21 completions out of 33 attempts, 289 yards, 3 touchdowns, and a quarterback rating of 96.7. So I'm thinking with DC having all of those turnovers, even though they had a fantastic rushing game, I'm thinking that was the catalyst as to why they were not successful. All right, everybody. And unfortunately, that is where my internet kind of went wonky and I lost the guys. I did try to record the rest of the podcast with them, but unfortunately, the file was encrypted. It didn't save properly, and I lost it. But the show must go on, right? So I hope y'all enjoyed that first segment with the guys. It was totally fun doing it. And hope you enjoy this one as well, because I'm going to keep on with the rundown of week 7. All right. So the Vancouver Legion took on the Sioux Falls Sparrows, and the Vancouver Legion won 34-14. Vancouver had 337 yards passing, 118 yards rushing for 455 yards total. Their time possession was 24 minutes, 51 seconds with 3 mistakes. The Sioux Falls Sparrows had 212 yards passing, 55 yards rushing with 267 yards total. Their time possession was 18 minutes, 55 seconds with 5 turnovers. Player of the game was quarterback Tom Pepper with 33 completions out of 40 attempts, 337 yards, 5 touchdowns, and a quarterback rating of 120.5. Now, with this game, I think one of the main reasons why Sioux Falls lost this game against Vancouver is actually putting up some great numbers. Yes, they've had their hit or miss games where they could have ran a little bit better, or maybe usually if their running game is not good, they typically don't win, especially with Robert Redford cannot get off. He did in this game for 118 yards. On the other hand, Colin Hart could not. He was only held to 55 yards. Also with the 5 turnovers, definitely the turnovers equals you're not more than likely going to win. Now, there are certain cases where you can throw a lot of turnovers. Like I've had one game where I had 7 turnovers when we still won, but that was pure luck. That was an anomaly. So that I think was the reason why Sioux Falls lost this game. And then not being able to do anything with 18 minutes and 55 seconds in comparison to the 24 minutes that Vancouver had the ball to actually do something. But congratulations to all the winners. Teams, are definitely separating themselves from the pack. And it's going to be a heck of a playoff scenario for Cam when that time comes, and I actually have that for you too. But before I go into that, welcome to my SFL chat around the water cooler. Well, I will be discussing some hot topics that are around the league. Now, one hot topic was the mid-season awards that happened over the course, I think it was Saturday. And so Cameron Irvine, our commissioner, and Mr. Michael St. Green, wide receiver for the London Knights, got together and put together some mid-season awards. And let me know in the comments whether you agree, whether you disagree, or whether you're kind of indifferent about what has happened. Now, most valuable player is Baltimore Vultures, Jack Wigmore, their quarterback. Offensive MVP, Portland's Ezekiel Love, their running back. Defensive MVP, Saron Yates for Baltimore. Offensive Rookie of the Years, Houston, Dave Burr. Defensive Rookie of the Year, Queen City's Cody Griffin. Staff front office is now the Los Angeles Lakers as of right now. And the best free agent acquisition is Mike St. Green for London. Now, I mean, for the most part, I could definitely agree with these. The only two that I could say that may need to change, and it's really because of the same person, would be the staff front of office. I think that should go to Queen City. And I think that the best free agent acquisition should go to Chris Comasat. Now, Chris going over to Queen City was absolutely the best thing that could have happened to Queen City, and it's showing on the field. After going through 2 seasons of lackluster seasons, not making it to the playoffs, not making it nowhere near them, and now you're definitely in playoff contention by having a 6-1 record. That's definitely a turnaround. That's definitely something to mention. As far as the front the front office staff, BJ and Chris have worked tirelessly to make sure that the team has what they need to help them turn everything around from the stigma that it had at one point. And they're doing their thing, and it's showing on the field. So when you say you're going to do something, as we were on a previous podcast together, they said that they were going to turn things around. They said they were going to be not your father's Corsairs, meaning not the Corsairs of old, the past 2 seasons. They lived up to that. And if it continues, they definitely deserve it at the end of the season. All right. Another special note is Mr. Brandon Smallwood, a.k.a. Espen Rael. He won some awards for his short film Carrier. And here are the awards that he's actually won for his film. Best Short Experimental from Viz Film Festival 2021. 2021 winner, the Ada Best Film Festival, Best Experimental as well. Best Short from Medusa Films Festival. Award winner, Image Rain Independent Film Award. Indie Eye Film Awards winner for Best Music Video, and Best Visual Effects, Patty Town Film Festival. Man, this is absolutely amazing. Espen, I'm so happy for you. I'm glad that you won an award for your hard work and dedication that you take into your craft. And I wish you the best luck in your new release. And hey, man, if you ever need somebody, I'm right here. You know I got you. All right. And now we're sliding over to the Pick-ems for week 8, and also the current divisional standings. And if the playoffs were today, these are all the teams that would actually make the playoffs. All right, so we're going to start with my Pick-ems. Now, this is getting much more difficult as the weeks go by, and if you notice, a lot of games ended with 2 and 3 point deficits or differences, and it's only going to get closer and closer, which is exciting, which means everything is more competitive. The coaches and the owners are gaining a better understanding of the Legends mode settings for 2K8. Awesome. So your heart is going to be in your throat every game. That's all that means. But on September the 11th at 2:30 p.m., Denver Nightwings will be taking on the Louisiana Revolution. on FTF Next at 2:30 p.m. I'm going to go, even though Louisiana will be at home, I think Denver is actually going to sneak away with the win on this one. Also, on September the 11th at 3:05 p.m., the Arizona Scorpions will be taking on the Vancouver Legion in Canada on our SFL Twitch channel. That's going to be a great game to watch. And of course, I'm going with Arizona. I think we have what it takes to beat Vancouver. But I tell you what, if Robert Redford runs all over us, we may have some problems. And if Tom Pepper, which I know that Vancouver does like to throw. So if Tom Pepper is able to make a whole bunch of connections, who knows? But I'm still going with Arizona. At 4:40 p.m., the Los Angeles Lakers will be taking on the Lone Star Glory at Lone Star on FTF Next. Going to be another great game to watch. I think since Lone Star is going to be at home, I'm going to give Lone Star a slight edge on this one by 3 points. DC will be taking on Portland at 5:15 p.m. on September the 11th on our SFL Twitch channel. And I think that Portland is actually going to pull this win off, even though DC has been showing significant changes in their offense. They've been getting a lot better. I still think they got a little bit more to go, but hey, if you don't like it, please prove me wrong. All right. But I think I'm gonna give it to Portland on this one. Houston will be taking on the Houston Hyenas will be taking on the Carolina Skyhawks at 7 p.m. on For the Fans Twitch network. And I am going with, this is gonna be a hard game. I think I'm gonna go with Carolina on this one. Houston has been running into a little bit of trouble on the offensive side of the ball. If they can actually hanker down, get Dave Burr more good looks, I think that they could win this game. But I'm going to give the slight edge to Carolina. With Las Vegas Fury taking on the Atlanta Swarm at 7:20 p.m. on Twitch, SFL Twitch network. Atlanta will be playing at home against Las Vegas. Las Vegas had a phenomenal game last week with Scott Johnson and Max Jackson on both sides of the ball doing their thing. I think Max Jackson had 4 interceptions. Scott Johnson had 4 touchdowns. Crazy stuff. All that said, with Atlanta being at home at the Hive, I think I'm going to roll with Atlanta. Queen City Corsairs. This is actually on September the 12th on Sunday. The Queen City Corsairs will be taking on the Florida Storm at 12:30 p.m. And it's going to be probably game of the week for the Fans Network. I am going to go with Florida on this one. They have proven themselves to be a force to be reckoned with. They are the Storm, but a force to be reckoned with at home. So I'm not going to go against them there. Even though Queen City just coming fresh off a loss, but that's the only loss they have sustained this season. It's going to be a great game either way. Sioux Falls will be taking on the Charleston Predators at 1:05 p.m. on SFL Twitch channel. And I am going to go with Charleston simply being at home. Sioux Falls is still trying to find their stride on offense. They're known for their running game. I think they're trying to switch it up and go passing this season, which it's good to change it up because once you become one-dimensional, people know how to battle you. But since they are still in their working phase, I think I'm going to give the win to Charleston. 2:40 p.m. September the 12th For the Fans Network. London Knights will be taking on the Baltimore Vultures. And I'm going to go with Baltimore on this one. This is a home game for Baltimore. They don't typically lose too many games at home. The Wake and the committee has been firing on all cylinders, and they are currently the undefeated team. So we're going to see if it stays that way. Jacksonville Kings will be taking on the Mexico City Aztecs at 3:15 p.m. on September the 12th and on our SFL Twitch channel. And again, Jacksonville had a phenomenal game last week, putting up some major numbers. But I think with Mexico City changing up their entire their entire team build to accommodate those 2 tight ends, I think they're going to wind up coming out with the win on this one. 5:00 p.m., the San Diego Mavericks will be taking on the Fort Toros on For the Fans Twitch network. I'm going to go with Fort Worth on this one. I think that San Diego, they are working feverishly to get more wins in the win column. I mean, Arizona gave them their first win. So they are totally capable of winning. Whether they will win against the Fort Worth Toros defense, not quite sure. That's why I'm going with Fort Worth, and it's a home game for them. Lastly, at 5:20 p.m., the Tulsa Desperados will be taking on the St. Louis Gladiators. And that will be on our SFL Twitch channel. I am going to go with St. Louis just because I'm not quite sure which Tulsa is going to show up. If they're going to do if they're going to be run heavy, if they're going to be pass heavy. Don't know exactly what to expect from Tulsa. St. Louis has been making significant positive changes in their offense. So I think if Tulsa cannot stop them, St. Louis will take home this win. All right. And again, guys, please don't take it to heart if I don't pick your team. It does not mean that I don't care about you. It does not mean that I don't love you any less, or that I love you any less, I should say. It's just a guess. I'm going to be either half right or half wrong. And lately, it's been more on the wrong side. But now, moving on to the divisions as of right now, after week 7. The Pacific Division has Los Angeles sitting at number 1 at 5-2. Vancouver's at 5-2, followed by Portland at 4-3, and San Diego at 1-6. In the West, Arizona is sitting at 4-3. Woo-woo. Las Vegas is sitting at 3-4, and Denver is sitting at 2-5. Sioux Falls is sitting at 1-6. In the South, the Mexico City Aztecs is sitting pretty at number 1, followed by Mexico City is at 5-2. Lone Star is at 3-4. Houston's at 3-4, and Fort Worth is at 2-5. In the North, Baltimore is sitting pretty at number 1, 7-0, undefeated. Then you have Queen City Corsairs sitting at 6-1, very close behind them, with the London Knights sitting at 3-4, and the Washington at 2-5. In the East, we have the Atlanta Swarm sitting at 5-2. All right, and in the East, we have Atlanta sitting at number 1 at 5-2. We have St. Louis at number 2, sitting at 3-4. Louisiana is also sitting at 3-4. We have Tulsa sitting at 2-5, rounding off that 4th position. And finally, the Atlantic. And the Florida Storm is sitting at number 1, 5-2. Charleston is sitting at 4-3. In position 2. Let's see. Number 3 is Jacksonville sitting at 3-4, and number 4 is the Carolina Skyhawks at 3-4. So it is a lot of 3-4 teams right now, and I'm sure that this will not be the case around, let's say about week 11. It's definitely going to thin out. Now, as far as our playoff standings, if the playoffs happen right now, these will be the teams that will make it, the teams that will be in the hunt, and the teams that will miss it by that much. So, number 1, of course, will be the Baltimore Vultures at 7-1. Queen City will be at number 2, 6-1, followed by Los Angeles and Florida, both at 5-2. Now, in the hunt, Mexico City, Atlanta, and Vancouver are all 5-2 as well. You have Arizona, Charleston, and Portland sitting at 4-3. And then you have Carolina and Las Vegas rounding off that 12th position at both sitting at 3-4. London will just miss the playoffs sitting at 3-1. And I'm sure this is basically, again, if the playoffs happen today, this is what it would be like. By the time week 10 comes, I'm sure that this would have changed significantly. And I'm very curious to see how. And it is going to start with games that are going to be taking place next week. So I want to thank all of you for joining me. Again, I do apologize for the glitches that I had. A special thanks goes out to Eddie Gage, Isaiah King, Aaron Alexander, and of course, Max Paul, aka Mighty, for being on the show, for helping me out with the first round of everything. I really appreciate it, fellas. And to you, thank you so much for tuning in. I'm looking forward to bringing you another great podcast next week, y'all. But until then, stay safe, treat each other well. Striker out.